Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Quoted interview series. I am Lou Carlozo, the editor-in-chief of Quoted. Quoted is, of course, the world's premier source platform that brings together journalists, PR people, and subject matter experts. And today on the show, I am really privileged to introduce to you someone who really needs no introduction when you think about it. He is an industry veteran and has worked with so many artists in the music biz. We'll run down a brief list in just a bit, and that is Bob Merlis, the press agent, the brains and the brawn behind Merlis for Hire, based in the Los Angeles area. So if you've heard names like John Mellencamp, Alice Cooper, Neil Young, Etta James, Dion, Jimi Hendrix, by way of the Jimi Hendrix Company, then you know something about this man. His work has touched your life. And we should also mention that some incredible legacy artists who are still vital today, by the way, ZZ Top is very much part of the stable. And Bob also works closely with ABKO, which controls the catalogs of the Rolling Stones and Sam Cooke. I could go on and on and on. Why don't I stop myself there? Bob, welcome to the Quoted interview series.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Now, very interesting story, perhaps one of an industry in change. You are Senior Vice President of Worldwide Corporate Communications at Warner Brothers. You're an industry veteran, and then something happens. What was it?
What happened was the Warner Brothers at that time was offloading senior staff to save money, pretty much. And there was a lot of upheaval in the executive suite. So people who had been there for at least 10 years and who were at least 50 years of age were offered a, go away package. And I took it because if I didn't take it, I might just go away without the package. So
go away or go away with the package.
Well, it wasn't an ultimatum, but my wise counsel said you'd be an idiot not to take it, so I took it.
But then starts a new adventure and a new career. What was it like getting Merlis for Hire off the ground?
I'll tell you, after it was known that I was going to leave Warner Brothers, I had occasion to spend some time with Chris Isaak.
Love Chris Isaak.
Who was one of the artists that I was, I was responsible for his PR. And so I was with Chris up in Vancouver. He was shooting the Chris Isaak show, his TV show on Showtime, which is absolutely hilarious. And, I told him I was going to leave. It was within a few weeks of that. He said, well, you got to get right back on, or they'll forget you. And that's what his motivation is. I figured out, he was projecting. He's a very hardworking guy. He always wants to be recording and touring. He never wants to, take a hiatus. And he put the fear of God into me. I thought, oh, what am I going to do? And it became known in the industry that I was going to leave, and the phone did not ring immediately. And I thought, I have to start my own company. How do I do that? And I went to a printer and got business cards made. And then I got some clients of my own, some of whom I had a relationship with before because they had something to do with Warner Brothers. Etta James was one of them. ZZ Top was one of them. Carlene Carter, and I got some other ones that I had never had any relationship with, and the greatest boon to me was when the phone rang and it was Alan Klein, the head of ABKO,
Wow.
who said, we have a Sam Cooke album coming out that has a song that had never been out before. We think you're the guy to tell the world about it. I said, Sam Cooke's pretty much the greatest of all time. Yeah. Okay, I'm on. No question. Have to do this. And I'd known Alan and some of the people at ABKO prior through friends of mine, so I was comfortable with that assignment, and they kept me on. It's my client as an independent publicist of the longest duration.
How long has that been then?
about 24 years as we speak,
Yeah.
23 or 4.
And you have been with ZZ Top a long, long time. I
Yeah, I
can't.
was when they were on Warner Brothers, I jumped in. They came aboard around the time of DeGueo. I guess that's
Mhm.
82, 1, something like that. And I became very close to them and to their then manager. And I was kind of their champion within the company. I said, don't take for granted ZZ Top. We got to work this. I think they've got something that hits so many different areas. I mean, they're hard rock, they're southern rock, they're blues, but the main thing was they're funny. They had a sense of humor about it. They're mirthful, and that's Billy Gibbons pretty much. So I kind of before Eliminator, I'm not taking credit for Eliminator selling 10 million albums, but I kind of sounded the clarion's call within the company and took them around to all the distribution centers and introduced them to folks, and then they had a giant hit record. So it's all because of me.
There
I'm
you
kidding.
go.
This is like what Dion says about, he's on the cover of Sergeant Pepper. He's in that
Yes,
collage.
he is.
And he always says, if you want to sell a lot of records, put me on the cover.
He's right, right? Sergeant Pepper
It
did
worked
sell
out
some
that time.
copies. Now, speaking of sense of humor, I just saw this. I didn't know if you were aware of it. I would think you might be. Is that the replacement bass player in ZZ Top is playing like a 46 string bass?
I think it's 18 strings.
Oh,
It's
it's
a
18 strings.
novelty item. He took
Yeah.
it out one day to show to the band. And Billy Gibbons says, you're going to do that every day because people like lose their minds when they see that. It's playable, but you don't want to schlep that around for more than one or two songs.
Good Lord.
So
It must weigh like 100 pounds.
yeah, I don't know. I've never picked it up. His name is um, Elwood, and he used to be a guitar tech for the band, so he knew everything about them. He was, and then during the pandemic, he grew a long beard. He was clean shaven, and he showed up after the pandemic for their first tour date, and he had an enormous beard, and he was going to shave it off. And Billy Bob Thornton, who's a friend of the band, heard about it and said, "Don't shave it off until I see it." And then Dusty died, and I mean, if you're going to have a beard, you're going to have a beard in ZZ Top. So he became the replacement for Dusty. And the first gig he did after Dusty's passing, or maybe while Dusty was ill and we didn't know he was going to go move on. Um, he we thought the beard was like a glue on. It was that's not plausible that he had this enormous beard, but it's real. You can tug at it and it's going to stay.
Wow. Incredible. There's almost like a synchronicity at work there.
Yeah,
Like he was
I mean,
preparing for something he didn't know he needed to prepare
kind of
for.
kind of cosmic. We
Yeah.
we credit Dusty with everything that happened afterwards. He was all preordained.
Yeah, there you go. You have so many stories from your time in the business. I understand at one point you were within inches of Dion in a motor vehicle while he was singing to you. Maybe you could reflect on that a
I
little
was
bit, or some of the other things that you've
Well, I
witnessed.
was a foot or two, whatever the distance between the front seat of my 1955 Studebaker and the back seat was the distance. And he had been recording in California, and we went out to lunch. We weren't the only people in the car, but it was my old car. I have a lot of old cars, and he said, "Oh, I got this new song. I'm going to record it." And he sang "Loverboy Supreme" in the back seat of my car, and I thought, "What is this? A Happy Days episode? It's unbelievable, you know." Uh, and that ended up on his, I think it was his Street Heart album. Wasn't a single, but I always liked the song because he auditioned it to me, and
There you
I'm
go.
still in the Dion business after all these years.
Did he pass the audition, Bob?
Yes. I
You
spoke
didn't
to
know
him.
you were holding the cards there, hot or not, right?
No, he didn't say, do you like it? Of course I like it. It's
Yeah.
Dion. And I spoke to him just yesterday, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah. Got a new album coming out
Let's see it.
at the end of this week.
Wow, the rock and roll philosopher. Indeed, he is. I
Yep.
always found it incredible that Lou Reed did not like the Beatles, but he adored that.
I mean, Dion liked the Beatles, remember? He's on the
Yeah,
cover.
exactly,
But
right? There's the connect. We've
yeah,
closed the loop.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, you mentioned cars, and that was something I wanted to touch on. You love cars. You have this history with cars. If I'm not mistaken, the Cars and Guitars of Rock and Roll exhibition was you're doing. It just seems like such a natural synergy. The idea
Yeah.
of cars and rock and music, and they play an important part in your life.
They definitely did. And when I was a little kid, I could tell you the make and model and the year of virtually any car on the road.
Wow.
Uh, I had, well, we didn't have a lot of foreign cars then, you know. A little Volkswagen. I don't know what year it is. That's a tough one. Although there are differences.
Mhm.
So when I was a kid, I was obsessed with cars and rock and roll. I mean, nothing has changed at all. My original passions continue to be my passions, and I'm not so good at fixing a car, and I don't play music. So I guess I'm sort of, I'm a satellite to the people the creative people, but I know what I know, and I just took mental notes all those years.
Yeah.
People people call me and say, look, I saw this car and what do you think about it, and I can usually identify it. Now that there's the internet, I can cheat, but i I have an Instagram feed and a Facebook page called Feral Cars. So these are cars in the wild that are they're not for sale, they're not at a car show, but they're at least 25 years old, and they're used as transportation, at least in a the broadest sense.
Mhm.
And I became an automotive journalist, simultaneous with my so-called rise in the music business. I was the car culture editor for LA Style. I wrote for Car and Driver. I was on the masthead at Automobile Magazine, and
Wow.
I still do automotive pieces. I wrote for the Haggerty Drivers Club, which is the classic car insurance company,
Hmm.
and I'm I still follow that passion, and I have a bunch of cars because I can't help myself.
Of course, of course. I have a bunch of guitars and I can't help myself.
Right.
It's always hard to pick a favorite, right? But of the cars you own, since I'm a car guy as well, if you could pick one, what would it be?
Well, I'll say the one I call my last car, meaning that if I had to divest, this would be the last to go of the cars I have in inventory, so to speak. And I've also owned it the longest. It's my 1962 Studebaker Lark Daytona convertible, and it's a V8 dual exhaust, four-speed, so it's sort of a secret muscle car. I mean,
Wow.
um, and I drove it from LA to South Bend, Indiana, and back in the 80s. So, and I wrote about that for Car and Driver, and I'm loyal to that car, but then again, I don't really sell cars very often, so don't hold my feet to the fire on that. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't sell guitars either, although my wife thinks I should.
Yeah.
And she's right, by the way, in case she's watching. Um, is South Bend, was that where the Studebaker factory was
Yeah.
located?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the national meet of the Studebaker Club. By the way, the Studebaker Drivers Club was established while Studebaker was still in business. That's how the cult was, was homegrown. Usually there's like, I don't know, Edsel Club or something like that. And there was a Studebaker Drivers Club in the early 60s. People had this kind of vision for it. As a kid, I owned stock in the Studebaker Corporation. I owned a hundred, four shares, $100 worth.
I hope you got rid of them in time.
I made money.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I
That's
had a
fantastic.
25% return on my investment.
Wow.
In other words, $25.
Mhm. shifting gears, if you will,
Yes.
you're an industry veteran who is at the nexus of two media industries that have changed incredibly, music and public relations. And in this day and age, I would think that it's all about learning new rules of the game, but also about things that don't change, that have made you successful. If there are, and I'm sure there will be people listening who are newer to the public relations business, what would you tell them in terms of the things that you've learned and you've inherited that are the most useful today and have been the most useful to you?
That's tough because the business changed so much. So, what I would say today is probably not what I would have said in 1993. But um, when people came in to see me to like, soliciting work because you got interviewed, I'd say, so what music do you like? I want to see or I want to hear about their passion for something. And if they said the Beatles, that's not, I mean, how could you not say the Beatles? I want to hear something specific. I don't have to agree with you. It could be some, virulent heavy metal thing, but if you're excited about it, then I want to hear about that. So I think to have a passion for the subject at hand is kind of critical. You could probably make a phone call, write a press release, and so on. But if you can't do it in a convincing way, it's less effective. I'm as an automotive journalist, I get it on the receiving end sometimes, and I get these pitches. Used to be on the phone more so than it is now, and I could tell you that someone was reading a script, and not only were they reading a script, they didn't know who they were reading it to. I remember
Oh,
getting a call about run flat tires. I said, "Do you know what I do? You should know who it is you're talking to and what they might be, and this kind of research is so much easier to do today than it was then. But, I mean, I wrote for a magazine. You could look up articles that I had written. I would never write about a tire. I mean, I wrote mostly about vintage cars and those kinds of activities and automotive history. But, they clearly they got a list and someone was told, call everybody on this list and try to convince them to do something. And that's, I don't respect that because there's no so minimal effort.
yeah.
You might as well have a drone call you up and say, are you interested in such and such insurance policy?
Yeah. Well, have a passion, know your passion, do your homework, all good things to highlight. I guess as we head off into the sunset here, something I'm really curious about because I look up to guys like you. I say, I want to have a career like that. What keeps you going? Why are you still doing it? Why not take
Um,
that Studebaker and drive off to
well,
some other
I do some of both. I have a house in Palm Springs, and most of the old cars are out there now. But well, I just like doing it. You know what? I don't want to disappoint my clients. I don't want Billy Gibbons to not be able to get me on the phone and have a conversation. And I like the connection. And with the clients, I mean, a guy like Dion, I'm just like, I can't believe I know him. When I was a kid, I heard him on the radio. It was like larger than life guy, and
Yeah.
now
Mhm.
he calls to kibitz with me. It's incredible. Um, um, so I just want to stay engaged. I guess I'm just used to it. I don't know what the alternative would be. Would just sit. I mean, leave me to my own devices. I'm going to sit home and play records. So, I might as well be engaged with clients that I like. I will not take a project that I don't have some connection with. It just because I tell these people like I'm really good. I'm going to be really good at cashing your check, but I want you to get something for it.
Yeah.
So I if I don't see specific upside or I don't have a personal affinity, be very hard to take that kind of project on.
Yeah. I can see that I probably shouldn't pitch you then my Tires tribute album.
Well, it depends. I got a whole
Unless you want
point
to
of view.
cash my check.
I have a whole point of view about bias ply tires as opposed to radial tires now that I know more than I ever did.
Yeah. That's the 17-minute suite on side B of the vinyl. Well, Bob, thank you so much for
Sure.
being on the Quoted interview series. If people want to contact you or look you up, what do they do?
They Googled Bob Merlis at bobmerlis.com. That's all I got.
There we go. Well, Bob, thank you again. And to all listening, thank you for being here today. Keep in mind that Quoted is the world's top source platform that brings together journalists, PRs, and subject matter experts for the greater good of the industry, for building community and doing all sorts of things to keep the best practices of media alive. A special thanks to the co-founders of Qwoted, Matt Neller and Dan Simon, and to Kelly Jura, working hard behind the scenes to make this interview series possible. I'm Lou Carlozo, the editor-in-chief of Qwoted, and until next time, stay true, stay strong, and stay suddenly connected.